Something powerful happens when a child of God seeks to know more about Him and His beloved Son. Nowhere are those truths taught more clearly and powerfully than in the Book of Mormon.
God always provides safety for the soul, and with the Book of Mormon, He has again done that in our time. Remember this declaration by Jesus Himself: "Whoso treasureth up my word shall not be deceived. And in the last days, neither your heart nor your faith will fail you."
Chapter 53. The Lamanite prisoners are used to fortify the city Bountiful. Dissensions among the Nephites give rise to Lamanite victories. Helaman takes command of the 2,000 stripling sons of the people of Ammon, about 64 to 63 BC. And it came to pass that they did set guards over the prisoners of the Lamanites, and did compel them to go forth and bury their dead. So remember, at the end of chapter 52, they just had this huge battle. The Nephites won. Long story short, the Nephites won, and Moroni was able to, he told the people, if you stop fighting, then I won't kill you. And so a lot of them put down their weapons of war, and so he got a bunch of those people as prisoners of war. So he has his guards set round about those Lamanite prisoners. And then he also has them bury the dead Nephites who were slain. And Moroni placed men over them to guard them while they should perform these labors. So this is what he's having the Lamanite the Lamanite prisoners that were soldiers do for him, for the Nephites. And Moroni went to the city of Mulek with Lehi, and took command of the city, and gave it unto Lehi. Now behold, this Lehi was a man who had been with Moroni in the more part of all his battles, and he was a man like unto Moroni. And they rejoiced in each other, other's safety. Yea, they were beloved by each other, and also beloved by all the people of Nephi. And it came to pass that after the Lamanites had finished burying their dead, and also the dead of the Nephites, they were marched back into the land Bountiful. And Teancum, by the orders of Moroni, caused that they should commence laboring and digging a ditch round about the land, or the city Bountiful. I should have said this a verse ago, but I love all the detail about this Lehi, who was one of the leaders of the armies, because there are so many people like that in the scriptures that played such a pivotal role, but didn't always get a lot of verses about them. So they're less well known to us. He's only mentioned a few times, this Lehi, who is one of the leaders of the Nephite armies. And I just love thinking about that, because there are so many mothers that aren't mentioned, so many wives that aren't mentioned, so many children that aren't mentioned, so many people that we're going to get to meet, and that we're going to get to hear all of their stories and know all of the connection they had to these miracles and these stories in the scriptures that we know and love. It just is all so exciting to me. And he caused that they should build a breastwork of timbers upon the inner bank of the ditch. And they cast up dirt out of the ditch against the breastwork of timbers. And thus they did cause the Lamanites to labor until they had encircled the city of Bountiful round about with a strong wall of timbers and earth to an exceeding height. So he's talking again more details about how he's fortifying this city of Mulek. And this city became an exceedingly stronghold ever after. And in this city they did guard the prisoners of the Lamanites, yea, even within a wall which they had caused them to build with their own hands. So this is important. So the Nephites had the Lamanites build this wall that was their own prison, if you will. It's where they were kept. And I think it's important too, because the adversary does that to us sometimes too, where we build our own walls. Almost all the time, we build our own walls around us by our choices, by the fears that we allow to permeate and that we entertain, by not acting, being agents to be acted upon instead of acting on our own, taking control of situations that we know the Lord wants us not to sit idly in. It's just interesting that they had the Lamanite prisoners build their own walls of their own prison with their own hands. Now Moroni was compelled to cause the Lamanites to labor, because it was easy to guard them while at their labor. So he kept them busy so they couldn't just sit and concoct plans to escape. And he desired all his forces when he should make an attack upon the Lamanites. So it's brilliant. He wants his own men to be strong and have energy, so he doesn't have them build these things that he's having the Lamanite prisoners build. And it came to pass that Moroni had thus gained a victory over one of the greatest of the armies of the Lamanites, and had obtained possession of the city of Mulek, which was one of the strongest holds of the Lamanites in the land of Nephi. And thus he had also built a stronghold to retain his prisoners. And it came to pass that he did no more attempt a battle with the Lamanites in that year, but he did employ his men in preparing for war, yea, and in making fortifications to guard against the Lamanites, yea, and also delivering their women and their children from famine and affliction, and providing food for their armies. And now it came to pass that the armies of the Lamanites on the west seashore, while in the absence of Moroni on account of some intrigue among the Nephites, which caused dissensions amongst them, had gained some ground over the Nephites, yea, insomuch that they had obtained possession of a number of their cities in that part of the land. So it happened again, while the Nephites are, it says here that Moroni had some dissensions among the people, and Moroni was kind of busy dealing with those, and so the Lamanites come in again and start creeping, taking over city by city, while Moroni was busy. And they started to obtain a possession of a number of their cities. And thus, because of iniquity amongst themselves, like we were just saying, yea, because of dissensions and intrigue among themselves, they were placed in the most dangerous circumstances. Isn't that scary? They did not have unity together, and they had inner workings of contention, dissensions, intrigue. And now, behold, I have somewhat to say concerning the people of Ammon, who in the beginning were Lamanites, but by Ammon and his brethren, or rather by the power and word of God, they had been converted unto the Lord. And they had been brought down into the land of Zarahemla, and had ever since been protected by the Nephites. So now this is going back to these sons of Mosiah that went out as missionaries with Alma the Younger too, remember this? To go and preach the gospel, because they had felt so bad about fighting against the church that they went, and Ammon says, I'm going. After his dad Mosiah prayed and got the confirmation that they could go, that it was the Lord's will, that would be so hard. Ammon came and told the king, I am here perhaps till the day I die. So he's basically like, I am committed to you guys. I am here. I'm not just coming for a little bit. I'm coming here to teach you the gospel and to show you who Jesus Christ is. So we're back talking about those people now, those Lamanites that were converted and then came and joined the Nephites. But they had made an oath, and because of their oath, they had been kept from taking up arms against their brethren. For they had taken an oath that they would never shed blood more. For they had taken an oath that they never would shed blood more. And according to their oath, they would have perished, yea, they would have suffered themselves to have fallen into the hands of their brethren, had it not been for the pity and the exceeding love which Ammon and his brethren had had for them. So they're saying that Ammon had a big liability in all of these people that will not fight. They bury their weapons of war. They took an oath they would never shed blood more. But because Ammon loved them, he protected them. And for this cause, they were brought down into the land of Zarahemla, and they ever had been protected by the Nephites. But it came to pass that when they saw the danger and the many afflictions and tribulations which the Nephites bore for them, they were moved with compassion and were desirous to take up arms in the defense of their country. There's a beautiful parallel here to the Savior's sacrifice for us, too. Being moved with compassion, just like Christ was, and desirous to take away the bands of death for us. But behold, as they were about to take their weapons of war, they were overpowered by the persuasions of Helaman and his brethren, for they were about to break the oath which they had made. Oh, don't you love the importance of integrity here? the power of an oath. I love so much all of these examples in the Book of Mormon where these people could have been mortal enemies, but they came together to make an oath not to fight against each other, and they actually kept the oath. Some of these bloodthirsty, wicked people actually kept their word. And right now, Helaman is begging with these people, do not break your oath. You made an oath with the Lord. Do not break that oath. I know you want to fight. I know you want to help and not just be a sitting duck and not just be helpless while we're in these battles, but you cannot break the oath that you've made with the Lord. And Helaman feared lest by so doing they should lose their souls. Therefore, all those who had entered into this covenant were compelled to behold their brethren wade through their afflictions in their dangerous circumstances at this time. But behold, it came to pass that they had many sons who had not entered into a covenant, that they would take up their weapons of war to defend themselves against their enemies. This is one of the most beautiful parts of the Book of Mormon. Therefore, they did assemble themselves together at this time, as many as were able to take up arms, and they called themselves Nephites. And you know what's a cool thing? Okay, so these sons of these men who were converted by Ammon and his brethren, they made an oath not to fight, not to shed blood. Well, their sons are getting a little bit older, and they're thinking, wait, we didn't take that oath. And this is before they even had a leader. This is just them being moved upon by the Holy Ghost, moved upon by the Spirit to help them know their role in this really important time. And they entered into a covenant to fight for the liberty of the Nephites, yea, to protect the land unto the laying down of their lives. Yea, even they covenanted that they would never give up their liberty, but that they would fight in all cases to protect the Nephites and themselves from bondage. And behold, there were 2,000 of those young men who entered into this covenant and took their weapons of war to defend their country. These are called the 2,000 stripling warriors, if you've heard that phrase. This is such a powerful story. And there's a painting by one of my favorite artists named Dan Wilson. He is so talented. I've done some oil painting classes from him and learned so much. He has years-long waiting lists to get in his classes. And he has this painting that is a Lamanite mother with the expression that she has on her face is so powerful. It is faithful, and it's also so, you can see the concern in her face, but also she is stalwart and strong. And she's standing in front of her son, and he's kneeling on the ground in front of her, and she's placing a helmet on his head. And she is looking at him like, the Lord's going to help you. It's in the Red Cliffs Temple down in St. George. I know that. I think it's in a lot of temples, but it is so, so powerful. So these 2,000 young men were so brave and entered into this covenant to defend their country. And now behold, as they never had hitherto been a disadvantage to the Nephites, they became now at this period of time also a great support. For they took their weapons of war, and they would that Helaman should be their leader. And they were all young men, and they were exceedingly valiant for courage, and also for strength and activity. And behold, this was not all. They were men who were true at all times in whatsoever thing they were entrusted. So it's pretty cool. They just barely were young men, like young boys, right? And now they're men. What makes a real man? I love that they're calling them men. And it's talking about their strength of character. That's what makes a real man. And Helaman was brave to take the offer to lead these 2,000 stripling warriors. He was a high priest. He was not a war leader. They were men of truth and soberness, for they had been taught to keep the commandments of God and to walk uprightly before him. And now it came to pass that Helaman did march at the head of these 2,000 stripling warriors to the support of the people in the borders of the land on the south by the West Sea. And thus ended the 28th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. So Helaman, he himself, he was not a war leader up until this point. He was a high priest. So he was very brave and also very faithful to totally rely on the Lord to take this army of young men who they now are calling men because of these strength of character traits that we just read about. I love that. But Helaman is going to take these 2,000 stripling warriors. And do you know what else? So many of these boys had lost their dads. The reason why they stopped fighting is because so many of them had already been killed. And so it was like a last-ditch effort to have the Lord's protection to say, okay, we're not going to fight anymore. And so a lot of these boys had single moms. So for these mothers to allow these boys to go out to fight would be so hard and so sobering, to just trust so much in the Lord, and not even a trust of guaranteeing that their boys would come home, but knowing with the eternal perspective, thinking celestial, that what they were supposed to do, the Lord was in charge of. And they had faith to know that the Lord is going to help them no matter what the outcome is that we see with telestial eyes, with our earthly blocks, without seeing the full picture, but also knowing that the Lord can sanctify their pain and consecrate their pain so that it can be for their good, and so that they can have their trust strengthened in the Lord and in His plan. Chapter 54. Ammoron and Moroni negotiate for the exchange of prisoners. Moroni demands that the Lamanites withdraw and cease their murderous attacks. Ammoron demands that the Nephites lay down their armies and become subject to the Lamanites, about 63 BC. And now it came to pass in the commencement of the 29th year of the judges that Ammoron sent unto Moroni, desiring that he would exchange prisoners. And it came to pass that Moroni felt to rejoice exceedingly at this request, for he desired the provisions which were imparted for the support of the Lamanite prisoners, for the support of his own people. And he also desired his own people for the strengthening of his army. Now the Lamanites had taken many women and children, and there was not a woman nor a child among all the prisoners of Moroni, or the prisoners whom Moroni had taken. Therefore Moroni resolved upon a stratagem to obtain as many prisoners of the Nephites from the Lamanites as it were possible. So Ammoron wants his people back. And Moroni is so happy because Ammoron's group, the Lamanites, had taken women and children. And Moroni's people had only men. They did not take any women or children as prisoners. Therefore he wrote an epistle and sent it by the servant of Ammoron, the same who had brought an epistle to Moroni. Now these are the words which he wrote unto Ammoron, saying, this is the letter that Moroni wrote to Ammoron to respond to his request to switch prisoners. Behold, Ammoron, I have written unto you somewhat concerning this war which ye have waged against my people, or rather which thy brother had waged against them, because his brother Amalickiah started this, and which ye are still determined to carry on after his death. Behold, I would tell you somewhat concerning the justice of God, and the sword of his almighty wrath, which doth hang over you, except you repent, and withdraw your armies into your own lands, or the land of your possessions, which is the land of Nephi. Yea, I would tell you these things, if ye were capable of hearkening unto them. Yea, I would tell you concerning that awful hell that awaits you to receive such murderers as thou and thy brother have been, except ye repent and withdraw your murderous purposes, and return with your armies to your own lands. I love his boldness. He's calling him out for the evil that he's doing and saying, you're going to go to hell if you don't change. But as ye have once rejected these things and have fought against the people of the Lord, even so I may expect that you will do it again. And now behold, we are prepared to receive you. Yea, and except you withdraw your purposes, behold, ye will pull down the wrath of that God whom you have rejected upon you, even to your utter destruction. But as the Lord liveth, our armies shall come upon you except ye withdraw, and ye shall soon be visited with death. For we will retain our cities and our lands, yea, and we will maintain our religion and the cause of our God. But behold, it supposeth me that I talk to you concerning these things in vain. Or it supposeth me that thou art a child of hell. That's a pretty strong statement to call him a child of hell. Therefore, I will close my epistle by telling you that I will not exchange prisoners, save it be on conditions that you will deliver up a man and his wife and his children for one prisoner. And if this be the case that ye will do it, I will exchange. And behold, if ye do not this, I will come against you with my armies, yea, even I will arm my women and my children, and I will come against you. And I will come against you, and I will follow you even unto your own land, which is the land of our first inheritance, yea, and it shall be blood for blood, yea, life for life, and I will give you battle, even until you are destroyed from off the face of the earth. Behold, I am in my anger, and also my people. You have sought to murder us, and we have only sought to defend ourselves. But behold, if ye seek to destroy us more, we will seek to destroy you, yea, and we will seek our land and the land of our first inheritance. Now I close my epistle. I am Moroni. I am a leader of the people of the Nephites. Now it came to pass that Ammoron, when he had received this epistle, was angry, and he wrote another epistle unto Moroni, and these are the words which he wrote, saying, I am Ammoron, the king of the Lamanites. I am the brother of Amalickiah, whom ye have murdered. Behold, I will avenge his blood upon you, yea, I will come upon you with my armies, for I fear not your threatenings. For behold, your fathers did wrong their brethren. Oh, it goes back to this lie of Nephi and Laman and Lemuel. And it goes back to them believing these foolish traditions that did not happen. This is why integrity and truth is so important, because look what has happened because of lies. Behold, your fathers did wrong their brethren, insomuch that they did rob them of their right to the government when it rightly belonged unto them. And now behold, if ye will lay down your arms and subject yourselves to be governed by those to whom the government doth rightly belong, then will I cause that my people shall lay down their weapons and shall be at war no more. Behold, ye have breathed out many threatenings against me and my people, but behold, we fear not your threatenings. Nevertheless, I will grant to exchange prisoners according to your request gladly. That I may preserve my food for my men of war, and we will wage a war which shall be eternal, even to the subjecting the Nephites to our authority, or to their eternal extinction. It seems so presumptuous to me that a man who has no idea what eternity even entails is promising an eternal war. That word would have to come from the adversary, because he would know that it is an eternal war between good and evil. But I don't think that Ammoron understood that. That's just my own thoughts. And as concerning that God whom ye say we have rejected, behold, we know not such a being, neither do ye. But if it so be that there is such a being, we know not, but that he hath made us as well as you. And if it so be that there is a devil and a hell, behold, will he not send you there to dwell with my brother whom ye have murdered, whom ye have hinted that he hath gone to such a place? But behold, these things matter not. I am Ammoron, and a descendant of Zoram, whom your fathers pressed and bought and brought out of Jerusalem. And now behold, I am a bold Lamanite. Behold, this war hath been waged to avenge their wrongs, and to maintain and to obtain the rights to the government, and I close my epistle to Moroni. Isn't it crazy that Ammoron is a descendant of Zoram? Zoram was such a dear friend to Nephi, but he says, whom your fathers pressed and brought out of Jerusalem. Like he's so mad that that Nephi and his family had taken Zoram out of Jerusalem. Remember, Jerusalem was destroyed? Ammoron, do you remember that detail? Zoram probably would not have survived, or he would have been taken captive just like Daniel and Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego by King Nebuchadnezzar, by the Babylonians. That seems like a really convenient thing to just forget about. Chapter 55. Moroni refuses to exchange prisoners. The Lamanite guards are enticed to become drunk, and the Nephite prisoners are freed. The city of Gid is taken without bloodshed, about 63 to 62 BC. Now it came to pass that when Moroni had received this epistle, he was more angry, because he knew that Ammoron had a perfect knowledge of his fraud. Yea, he knew that Ammoron knew that it was not a just cause that had caused him to wage a war against the people of Nephi. And he said, Behold, I will not exchange prisoners with Ammoron, save he will withdraw his purpose, as I have stated in my epistle. For I will not grant unto him that he shall have any more power than what he hath got. Behold, I know the place where the Lamanites do guard my people, whom they have taken prisoners. And as Ammoron would not grant unto me mine epistle, behold, I will give unto him according to my words. Yea, I will seek death among them until they shall sue for peace. Moroni is really upset because he knows that Ammoron is just lying through his teeth, and also is not going to stop battling. And now it came to pass that when Moroni had said these words, he caused that a search should be made among his men, that perhaps he might find a man who was a descendant of Laman among them. This is also very good strategy. And it came to pass that there was found one whose name was Laman, and he was one of the servants of the king who was murdered by Amalickiah. Now Moroni caused that Laman and a small number of his men should go forth unto the guards who were over the Nephites. Now the Nephites were guarded in the city of Gid. Therefore Moroni appointed Laman and caused that a small number of men should go with him. And when it was evening, Laman went to the guards who were over the Nephites, and behold, they saw him coming, and they hailed him. But he saith unto them, Fear not, behold, I am a Lamanite. Behold, we have escaped from the Nephites, and they have slept. And behold, we have taken of their wine and brought with us. So Moroni has Laman, who's a descendant of the Lamanites. Perfect name, because it's not confusing. To go to the Lamanites and say, Hey, I'm one of you guys. I'm one of your prisoners. I'm one of your people that was a prisoner to the Nephites, and I escaped, and I even took their wine. So here's some wine that was the Nephite wine. Now when the Lamanites heard these words, they received him with joy. And they said unto him, Give us of your wine, that we may drink. We are glad that ye have thus taken wine with you, for we are weary. They're like, Awesome, we cannot wait. Can you please give us the wine now? But Laman said unto them, Let us keep of our wine till we go against the Nephites to battle. But this saying only made them more desirous to drink of the wine. This is kind of what you do to little kids, right? Like, I have kids, right? So you say things like, Oh, I hope nobody makes their bed today. And then they all run up and make their bed. It doesn't always work, but some ages that does work pretty great. But that's what they did. That's what Laman did to these Lamanite guards. He's like, no, let's save the wine. Let's wait till we have another battle with the Nephites. And they're like, no, we want it now. So he's kind of playing a little bit of the reverse psychology that parents do to little kids. For they said, We are weary, therefore let us take of the wine, and by we shall receive wine for our rations, which will strengthen us to go against the Nephites. Yeah, perfect, guys. Go get wasted and then go fight the Nephites. Perfect plan. And Laman said unto them, You may do according to your desires. Like, all right, go ahead. And it came to pass that they did take of the wine freely, and it was pleasant to their taste. Therefore they took of it more freely, and it was strong, having been prepared in its strength. So it's very strong, high alcohol content wine. And it came to pass that they did drink and were merry, and by they were all drunken. And now when Laman and his men saw that they were all drunken and were in a deep sleep, they returned to Moroni and told him all the things that had happened. And now this was according to the design of Moroni. This is exactly what Moroni wanted to have happened. And Moroni had prepared his men with weapons of war, and he went to the city of Gid, while the Lamanites were in a deep sleep and drunken, and cast in weapons of war unto their prisoners. So they armed all of the prisoners, the men. Oh, what a cool dichotomy, because that is exactly what Moroni threatened Ammoron with. He said, I will arm my women and my children and the men to come battle against you. And what he didn't say was that he's arming the men, the women, and the children who the Lamanites have already captured. So they threw in weapons of war. See how the Book of Mormon is the most exciting movie of all time? It would be the greatest movie. By the way, the church has done movies, and they are so good. You should watch them. But Moroni has this all prepared. They go and give all these weapons of war to the men, the women, and children that are in the Lamanite prisons. Okay? Insomuch that they were all armed. Yea, even to their women and all those of their children, as many as were able to use a weapon of war. When Moroni had armed all those prisoners and all those were done in a profound silence. Isn't this amazing? It's so cool. But had they awakened the Lamanites, behold, they were drunken and the Nephites could have slain them. So it's like, even if they were loud doing this, they were drunk and the Nephites could easily kill them. But behold, this was not the desire of Moroni. He did not delight in murder or bloodshed, but he delighted in the saving of his people from destruction. And for this cause, he might not bring upon him injustice. He would not fall upon the Lamanites and destroy them in their drunkenness. So he's not going to just come and just kill them all when they're drunk, which would be so easy because he doesn't delight in bloodshed. He doesn't want that to happen. But he had obtained his desires, for he had armed those prisoners of the Nephites who were within the wall of the city and had given them power to gain possession of those parts which were within the walls. And then he caused the men who were with him to withdraw a pace from them and surround the armies of the Lamanites. And behold, this was done in the nighttime, so that when the Lamanites awoke in the morning, and they were all hungover, it doesn't say that part, but they would be, they beheld that they were surrounded by the Nephites without, and that their prisoners were armed within. And thus they saw that the Nephites had power over them, and in these circumstances they found that it was not expedient that they should fight with the Nephites. Therefore their chief captains demanded their weapons of war, and they brought them forth and cast them at the feet of the Nephites, pleading for mercy. Isn't this perfect? Now behold, this was the desire of Moroni. He took them prisoners of war, and took possession of the city, and caused that all the prisoners should be liberated, should be freed, who were Nephites. And they had joined the army of Moroni, and were a great strength to his army. And it came to pass that he did cause the Lamanites, whom he had taken prisoners, that they should commence a labor in strengthening the fortifications round about the city Gid. So he still has the Lamanite prisoners, and he still put them to work. They are fortifying this city Gid. And it came to pass that when he had fortified the city Gid according to his desires, he caused that his prisoners should be taken to the city Bountiful. And he also guarded that city with an exceedingly strong force. I love it. And it came to pass that they did, notwithstanding all the intrigues of the Lamanites, keep and protect all the prisoners whom they had taken, and also maintain all the ground and the advantage with which they had retaken. And it came to pass that the Nephites began again to be victorious and to reclaim their rights and their privileges. Many times did the Lamanites attempt to encircle them about by night, but in those attempts they did lose many prisoners. And many times they did attempt to administer of their wine to the Nephites, that they might destroy them with poison or with drunkenness. But behold, the Nephites were not slow to remember the Lord their God in their time of affliction. So don't you love that? In verse 30, the Lamanites tried the same trick. It says many times they would attempt to administer of their wine to the Nephites. So the Lamanites come trying so hard to beat them at their own game. And this is something that the righteous Nephites had done previously too. They'd done it to the Lamanites earlier. It's like the oldest trick in the book, get them all drunk, liberate the captives, take over the army, wake up and they're surrounded. It's just, I love it that my mind plays this out so I can see them, the Lamanites coming up like, hey guys, you guys thirsty? Did you want some of this really cool drink that we brought you? It just is so funny to me because it already worked one time and the Nephites aren't stupid. And the best part is in verse 31 where we just read, the Nephites were not slow to remember the Lord their God in this their time of affliction. They cannot be taken in their snares, so the Lord gave them wisdom. Yea, they would not partake of their wine, save they had first given to some of the Lamanite prisoners. So any drink that the Lamanites brought them, the Nephites were like, oh, cool, thank you so much. We're going to give it to your own people real quick. So they went and gave that wine to the Lamanite prisoners. And that's brilliant. Just in case it was poison, they're going to give it to their own people first. That was very smart. And they were thus cautious that no poison should be administered among them. For if their wine would poison a Lamanite, it would also poison a Nephite, and thus they did try all their liquors. And now it came to pass that it was expedient for Moroni to make preparations to attack the city Morianton. For behold, the Lamanites had by their labors fortified the city Morianton until it had become an exceeding stronghold. And they were continually bringing new forces into that city and also new supplies of provisions. And thus ended the 29th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. So this land, Morianton abandoned his post because he was overzealous to expand his territory. So we're going to see why they're able to go attack the city Morianton. Maybe I gave you a spoiler alert, sorry. We're going to talk really quick about a few of the mistakes of the Lamanites just in this chapter alone. So we see early on that they did not confirm the truth of the message. And then verse 9, they relied on artificial sources of strength. That was when they had the wine. They wanted the wine that Laman, who was like an undercover spy of the Nephites, but was previously one of Amalickiah's servants when he was murdered. Does that make sense? And so he brought the wine, and they believed that he was one of their people because he looked like them. And so they had artificial source of strength. Verse 10, forbidding something only made them want it more. So it's pride and greed, right? Because Laman's like, oh, let's wait till we have a battle with the Nephites. And they're like, we want it now. Verse 11, they took more than what they deserved. So they took a bunch of the wine, and it was very strong wine. Verse 12, gave in to their own desires. Verse 13, they overindulged their appetites because it was a really strong wine and it was pleasant to their taste. So it said they took it more freely and it was strong. Verse 14, incapacitated themselves. They became completely merry, completely drunk. It's interesting that it all centered around them being deceived by alcohol, by a substance. There is so many important reasons why we have the word of wisdom. And we see over and over in scriptures, and not just scriptures, but throughout history too, when people not upholding what we have as the word of wisdom, which is such a gift that we have because they didn't have this, but where that has destroyed lives, destroyed people, caused all sorts of heartache and contention and evil and wrongdoing to happen. I'm so grateful for the word of wisdom, and I'm so grateful for Moroni and his strength and his humility in following the Lord.